So we're in the 1994 911 993. The 993 was the last of the air-cooled Porsches before they moved into the water-cooled 996. And you know, the recipe for Porsche in general, obviously apart from the fact that it went from air to water-cooled, hasn't really changed. They've always been about having this engine slung kind of just over the back axle, and then making it quite a dynamic driving experience. I think the gearboxes in the earlier cars was a little bit long, a little bit like leggy in terms of the throw, and feels probably a little bit too old school now for a lot of people. And then they moved into the G50 box, which was a lot better, and then this is the sort of iteration again on top of that one with the 6-speed, and it's good. You know, it is a really good drive, and they still have that wonderful 911 DNA that's just been the same throughout the whole of the sort of 60s, 70s, and now obviously even still in the 2020s, we're still Porsche still producing 911s that don't look that dissimilar, not bigger, but don't look that dissimilar to when they were producing them in the 70s. And it's the DNA that makes everybody kind of, I think, who's driven a car and is a bit of a petrol head, it makes them love Porsche, because you just have this grip, this handling, this engagement, this kind of feeling through the steering, and it's something that very few sports cars have managed to do, and probably why the recipe for this 911 has remained unchanged. But there is always room for improvement, and as we've seen with Singer, changing not just the looks of the car but also that driving ability as well, there is an opportunity to make something better and make something that's also, you know, becoming more valuable and more sought after. People want that retro style in those you know, those looks of the cars they had on their walls as teenagers, or their mum and dad drove, you know, the ones they coveted after, or their neighbours might have had. They want that sort of nostalgic feel, but they also want the mod cons, you know, the ability to be able to just get in, turn the key and just go. And I think that's what the Restomod project we're building at TheCarCrowd alongside GP59 can really do, keeping that DNA kind of the same, but making those improvements to things like, you know, a shorter shift gearbox to make it a bit more engaging, the fibre-wire throttle to make sure that it's still responsive, the changes and upgrades to the ECU that we're going to make, and the slightly more output power from the 3.6 litre air-cooled engine will just mean that you've got something that's a lot more usable, and also keeps that sort of miles and smiles type feel that you get, especially when you're driving down these lovely B roads in the Oxfordshire countryside. So the Restomod project is going to contain about 6 to 8 people that are going to be able to join together to own this car and use it just like I am today. So once this car is completed and finished, you'll be able to have, as a Syndicate member, a number of days where you'll be able to book out through our calendar and then take the car to do pretty much whatever you want. We're not going to allow it onto track days and things, but whatever you might want to do that weekend or those days that you block the car out, the car is yours to use. It's yours to basically feel that you effectively have the sports car, but for 1/8 of the cost. And that's why these Syndicates are so good. They're reducing that water level, but making sure you can still get the same level of engagement, same level of fun, same level of usage pretty much to what you probably would do, even if it was in your own garage, but just 1/8 of the cost. Plus, you join together with the other 7 members in the Syndicate, so you get to know them, you get to build a community, you can swap days, you can swap weeks, all knowing that you have the single thing in common, which is the love of a beautiful 911 Porsche. So the Porsche 993 is pretty much that sweet spot for me of the 911 era. It's a bit more modern than some of the older G-Series Porsches, but it's also not too modern that it's got bigger and bulbous like maybe the 991 and 992 more recent models have. This was kind of peak Porsche. This was in the era where they had the manual gearbox, the flat 3.6 litre engine. You were running around 270 horsepower in this between 1994 to 1998. The Turbo S making over 400 horsepower, and of course the GT2, the kind of Widowmaker as it was nicknamed, which was then making 424 horsepower. So, you know, you had a different variants. There was always this progressive nature with the Porsches. You could start off with the base model Carrera, or you could be the hooligan in the Carrera RS as well. I think the design proportions of this car are just absolutely stunning. It's one of those cars where you look at it from any angle, and because of the wider track at the back and narrow focus at the front, you actually still get this kind of position, this stance that shows speed, power, and true kind of sports car looks. This one hasn't got the whale tail at the back like the 964 had. The 993 had this sort of tail that came up as you went through certain different speeds. And actually that sleek line that makes it, I think, look almost understated compared to some of the earlier models. So we're taking this 911, this 993, and turning this into a resto-modded Porsche. The reason we're doing that is because although this is a great car, like I say, peak Porsche, there's still a few areas that it could be improved. The throw on the gearbox is a bit too long, the brakes can be a little bit spongy, and of course 270 horsepower isn't really a lot in this day and age. So look out for the stats around this car, because when it comes to a Restomod, this is going to be the envy of everybody at every Cars and Coffee once it's done, and the Syndicate for this is launching very soon.